All right. I hope you all are doing well after a very great weekend. And we can now start with our training session. So, if we recall from previous session, we were discussing about data visualization in Python. Now, data visualization, it is a very important aspect of machine learning as it helps you visualize the data. And when you see it in form of bars, charts, then you find it more easier to interact with your data and you obtain some insights which really help you while getting to know about the data. So there are a few libraries that we are going to learn in this program. So few of the graphs we created using Matplotlib. We will be also studying about Seaborn and Plotly. Now, Matplotlib is a very low level visualization library as compared to the other two. And apart from these libraries, there is also Bokeh, Folium, and also some other libraries. Now, these libraries we won't be covering since we have time constraint in this training program. But I would recommend that if you like visualizing data and if you want to delve deeper into it, you can study about these libraries as well, as they allow you to create some very interactive graphs. All right. So let's start with the session, and we are going to start by declaring few of the libraries. All right. So in the previous session, we went through a data set, and that was, if I correctly recall, student performance. This data set is also present in the drive, so feel free to access it. Let me just check its name. All right. So we have already discussed few of the functions that of pandas that we can use to understand about this data, and we very correctly know that it contains scores of some students which belong to different race and ethnicity in three dominant subjects: math, reading, and writing. All right. So we use this particular data set and we learn to create bar charts. So a simple bar chart we could create previously upon it. Now, there are various variations to a bar chart, and one such chart is known as a grouped bar chart. Let me just get a separate image for it. And so this is how a group bar chart looks like. So basically, for one single data record, you can compare different values. So if for all of my records, I want to compare the values of math score, reading score, and writing score for each and every person that is present in my data set, then I can visualize it using a grouped bar chart. So there are a few techniques that we will be learning, although the function that we will use will be plt.bar only. So you can use the function and we'll take help of this function to create this bar chart. So firstly, bar charts, they are created when one of your data is of categorical nature. Okay, so in those scenarios, you can take help of bar chart to visualize that data. So here, what I'm going to do for all of the records that I have in my data set. So if you check the shape is 1000 cross 8. Now, if I'm going to take all of the data, then the bar chart that I make, it is going to be a little bit distorted and difficult to understand. So for clarity's sake, I am going to slice top 10 records of the data set only, and you can do the same. So from DF, I'm slicing the top 10 records, and these are the records. This way we'll be constructing the grouped bar chart. All right. So for these records, we know that the marks for each and every column, they are present in the respective columns. So for math score, we have this column for reading and for writing. So this is going to be one value. So let's consider that this is going to be the value of y-axis, the score for math for one particular data. Then we must have a value for x-axis as well. So for x-axis, let's say I want to represent it by the index number. So if you want to provide the index number, what you can do, you can simply use data.index. So this is going to return list of all the index numbers, and this is your math score. And you can simply do plt.show, which is going to generate a graph for math scores. As you can see, this particular graph, it contains from 0th record till 10th record. Sorry, from 0 till 9, first 10 records. These are the marks for math subject. But again, I don't want this graph to be depicting just math marks. I wanted to show the marks for reading and writing as well. So as many bars as you would like to create a separate function for all the columns. And you can simply change their names. So we have reading and we have writing. When I showed you the picture for this group bar chart, you can see that for every group, there is a group width. All right. So group width is the parameter that you need to define while creating a grouped bar chart. And it can be anything, it can be any float or integer value. So either you can declare a variable at the top. Let's take a group width of 0.2 and see how it is going to look like. And then inside the bar function, you can define the parameter width and pass your group width. All right. Do the same for all the functions. Now, what is the catch here? If we see at the picture again, you're going to observe that these bars, all of these bars, they are placed at a very specific order. So first we have this blue one, then we have yellow, then purple, and then green. So in this way, we need to specify in a manner in these functions so that each and every bar for math, reading, and writing, they are placed at a very specific place. So what do I mean by that? These values that you can see here on the x-axis, they are known as x ticks. So in a way, I can mention a bar on this tick. So let's say this is math score. Then I can mention another bar for separate score on the left of this tick, and then another bar on the right hand side of this tick. I hope you are able to get it. So how do you do that? Firstly, let's say this is going to be my bar that comes in the middle. So I'm going to leave this function as it is. And here from the x-axis value, which is data index, I'm going to minus the group width. So that this particular bar, it is created on the left-hand side of this bar. Then the third one, here I'm going to add the group width. So that this bar, it gets created on the right-hand side of this bar. Let's see how it is going to look like now. So these are our bars. The first one, that is blue one, is for math score. The second one is for reading score. The third one is for writing score. We'll be talking about legends, which is basically a way to identify which color is representing which kind of value at a later stage. But as of now, you can look at this graph and you can look at this piece of code and you'll be able to understand how you can compare multiple values using a bar graph. Now, please give me a thumbs up if you are able to understand it. I can see that there are some messages in the chat box. I'll look at them later at the end of the session. All right. Now, there can be one thought that can arise in your mind is that if the data is too large and I'm not able to visualize all of it together, so is there any limit to it? Is there any limit to how much data values I can visualize? So basically, libraries such as Matplotlib, when you are dealing with a very large data and you are constructing bar charts using that very large data, so these bars, they are going to overlap, or you won't be able to clearly visualize the data or clearly see the data. So yes, there are some limitations. However, the libraries such as Bouquet and Folium that I mentioned at the beginning of the session, these libraries, they allow you to zoom into the graph so that when you create a graph with very large data set, it is going to be comprehensible for you guys. All right, I believe this is clear to everyone. Now let's talk about labeling this graph. So I want this graph to have a legend. So here you can pass a parameter that is label, which is going to be a string. So inside this, you can mention any value that you want for this label. So this one is for reading score, and this is for writing. At the end, we will be using a function that is plt.legend, and this is going to impart a legend to our graph. You guys already know about the colors parameter. So if you want every bar to have a specific color, you can use it in every function, and then a color of your choice will be imparted. Also, if you look at the docstring of this legend function, at the bottom, I suppose, you will find this lock parameter, and it can take these values: upper left, upper center, center, best. So if you want to change the position of this legend, you can pass these values. So there are 4 or 5 values that you can pass, and the legend position will be changed. So this corner, in the middle, in the bottom, that you can decide on your own. Abhi yahan tak, if anyone has any doubt, give me a thumbs up if we can move to another category of graph. All right. So let's figure out a next a different kind of plot, that is pie plot or pie chart. Now, for bar chart only, we have many categories. So we have this grouped. Then we will be studying about another one that is called stack. तो उसके बारे में भी we'll be looking at a later stage. अभी के लिए let's see how you can visualize data using a pie chart. तो उसके लिए what I'm doing, I'm creating two list, simple list. एक ले लेते हैं languages, which is a string of some languages. So C++, C, and then Python. And there is another list that contains a value associated with each one of them for their popularity. So I'm taking float values for now. And okay, so if you want to draw the pie chart, then the function that you use is plt.py. Inside it, you can specify your data. So popularity list, it contains my data values. And if I pass just the popularity list, then you will be seeing that this is your simple pie chart. As of now, it is not conveying any kind of information, and it is just some slices of pie that are arranged together. So let's see how it can convey more information. And also to get rid of these values, you can use plt.show function. Now let's attach labels to this pie. तो उसके लिए we have parameter labels, and inside it you can pass a list of your labels. So now the pie chart, it has labels. Okay, so this is one parameter that you can use. There is also a function that we haven't used yet, which is plt.figure. And if you want to change the figure size of your chart, now this function, you can use it for any of the charts that we have created so far and we are going to create in the future. तो किसी भी figure का, if you have to increase the size, you can use this function, which takes a parameter that is fig size. And this fig size parameter takes a tuple as value. So in this tuple, you can provide the size of width and length. and then your figure size will be changed. Okay, let's. All right, so now it is bigger as compared to before, but let's change it. You get the crux, right? So you can provide the value for length and width, और आपकी figure का dimensions will be changing then. Now there might be a scenario जहाँ पे you have to like highlight one particular slice. Let's say here the value of uh, popularity for C language is more in our data. So let's say I want to highlight it and I want this slice to be set apart from the rest of the slices. So a parameter is present in py function that is called explode. And this parameter is going to take a list of values for all of the data that is present. So for each data value, C, C++, Java, Python, it is going to take a list of values. And what you do, so in the series of their occurrence, like first we have C++. So here I'm going to mention a value 0. Then we have C. So here I'll mention something which is not 0. I'll tell you why we are doing this. And for every other value, again, I'm putting the data as 0. Now, when you run it, you can see that the slice for C, it has been set apart from rest of the pie chart. So if you want कि आपका कोई भी एक particular data value, you have to set it apart from rest of the data. You can provide any value inside this explode list which is not 0. So this value, it can be of float or integer type. Like if I set it to 2, you can see that the distance between this pie and the rest of the pie chart, it increases. All right. If you want to explode multiple slices, that too is possible. Now you can see I have exploded C and Python, both of them. Okay, so if the value is 0, it means do not explode. Otherwise, anything other than that, explode the slice. Also, there is parameter for radius, and you can set the radius of your pie chart as well. And again, it is going to increase the size of the pie chart. Apart from it, we have a parameter that is auto PCP. Now, what it means, basically, if you want to denote here in the pie chart itself, if you want to denote the actual percentage or the actual value of data, then you can specify the format inside this auto PCT parameter. So basically, auto PCT is going to be a formatted string, and I am mentioning a comment that you are going to see different formatted strings that can be passed as value to this auto PCT parameter. So firstly, these strings, they are going to start and end by a percentile sign. And here inside it, you can specify the format. So I want the format to be, let's say, 1.1f, which means the value is going to be of float type, and it is going to take, uh, wait a minute. So the value is going to be of float type, and it is going to take values till 1 decimal places after the decimal. Here, the first percentile and the second percentile denotes the format, and this percentile sign, it denotes that this is going to be a percentage, the value that you provide. इसके बारे में you have to study how the format can be different for different values, and it's not going to take a lot of time. So please have a look at these formatted strings for AutoPCT parameter. Now, obviously, you guys are well aware about colors, so you can use the colors parameter and provide the colors of your choice here. Please give a thumbs up agar you understand pie chart and there is no doubt. All right. So let's do a simple question. In the drive, you are going to find a data set by the name of sample superstore. The name could be different. Uh, in this data set, you have to compare the total sales for each category of products. You are going to tell me first how many category of products are there. Again, this you have to write in the comment box. And then you have to compare the total sales for each category of product, and you have to tell me which product has maximum sales. This question is going to be homework. So abhi ke liye you guys can do first one. And if you are attempting the same question, please give me a thumbs up. All right, Murdhwaj is going to attempt. What about rest of the people? Chalo, baki everyone, they can take a break for a few minutes then. Okay, please attempt it, whoever is attempting, and write the answer in the chat box. Also, Afan has a doubt that in all of these cases, we are using PLT for plotting the graph. However, all the PLT methods are manipulating the same chart. What if we need to create multiple charts? For that, we will be discussing some functions. So a very popular function is grid spec and subplot. So these functions, they will allow you to create multiple plots of different kinds in one single figure. Can you react, Afan, if your doubt is clear? All right, then everyone, if you want to attempt the question, please attempt it. Otherwise, take a minute, take a break for a few minutes. Hanji Murdhwaj, did you get any results? If you are still attempting, react with a thumbs up. Murdhwaj, if you are attempting the question, please react with the thumbs up. All right, take a minute. All right, you can do it later then if you are not able to recall the methods. Okay, so both of these questions, they are going to be homework. In this question, you are going to face an error or some kind of issue with the visualization. So you have to figure about that as well. तो इसके बारे में definitely I'll ask tomorrow. All right, so let's proceed with the next concept. And here we are going to learn about stacked graph. So let me just show a picture for the same. Yes, so this is how a stacked bar graph looks like. Now, what is it going to convey? Basically, it will also help you to compare between several values throughout the time. So here you can see on the y-axis we have revenue, and on the x-axis we have, I guess, street name or the name of the places, and we are comparing a value, okay, several variables through time. So how to create a stacked bar graph for our data? For this, we are going to take a new data set, and in it you will find that there is a data set by the name of car sales. Okay. Now this data set, it contains information about manufacturer, what is the model, sales of that particular car in thousand, uski 4-year resale value, and other information about it. Its price in thousand, horsepower, fuel capacity, fuel efficiency, and other things. You can study this data set in detail if you want after the session. If you check the shape of this data set, so it is 157 cross 15, which means ki not that big of a data set. Now, in this data set, if I want to compare, let's get a few records first. Let's say I want to compare 4-year resale value and price in thousand for different manufacturers. ठीक है? तो मेरे को देखना है कि if the price and the 4-year resale value. So I want to compare these things for different manufacturers. In this case, I can use a stacked graph. Also, Afan has given the answer for the previous question, and he says that there are 3 categories and highest sales is of technology. All right, well done, Afan. Okay, so uh, we were talking about comparing value for 4-year resale value and price in thousand for different manufacturers. So let's say see how to create a bar graph for the same. Now there can be various way to do this, and I'll be using a grouping method to create this stacked bar graph. So firstly, let's have a look at our data. So in this car, we have the column for manufacturer. Let me just access the column. And if we do value counts, so you can see that to one particular manufacturer, there are several records that belong to it, which means I need to get an aggregate value for all the manufacturers for 4-year resale and for price in thousand. That's why it is necessary for me to group the data. So let's group it. And we'll be grouping upon manufacturer column. So these are the groups that will be performed. Now, in order to create a stacked bar graph upon all of this data, what I need to do, either I can get the aggregate if I want to do that. If I haven't had the option of comparing the manufacturer और मेरे पास सीधा सीधा data होता, then I would have created the stack graph directly. But in this case, I need to iterate over all the manufacturers and all of the records that belong to these manufacturers. So that's why I need to run this group object through a loop. One thing you all can clearly observe that if I use this group by object and I iterate over it, I'm going to get two values. One value would be the group name and other value would be the data associated with it. So in our loop variable, in our loop, we are going to declare two loop variables for the same. So for, let's say, group and for data. Okay, this is going to be the name for the group and this is going to be the data that is associated with that particular group. Again, since stack graph is a bar graph, you can use the bar function to create it. Okay. The value on the x-axis is going to be group and the value on the y-axis is going to be data. But out of this data, let's say for 23 record, I am going to get the value for all of these columns. But मेरे को सारी values नहीं चाहिए. I am only interested in getting this value and this value. Sorry, 4-year resale and price in 1000. So I need to slice these values from the record. और उसके लिए you need to mention the column name. So the column name is 4-year resale value. Okay. Till here, pretty much all of the things that we were doing before only. अब इसके बाद you have data for one particular group. There are multiple data records. So what you need to do, you need to perform aggregation. और उसके लिए I have used the mean function upon this data for 4-year resale value. All right. Now, before running it and to convert it into the stack graph, I am going to use another bar function. And this bar is going to be for price in thousands. So here, let's slice the column. This is the column. और यहाँ पे I have replaced the value. Again, since there are different multiple records, so we are going to do the average for all the records. And to convert it into a stacked graph, we are going to use a parameter that is called bottom. Okay. So here in the stacked graph, you can see that there is a value that is present at the bottom, and then फिर उसके top पे एक value है, and then so on. You can create the stacks. So between these two bars, जिस भी bar को I want to keep at the bottom, I can use the bottom parameter in that function, and I can mention here कि ये particular value, that this particular group, it is going to be in bottom of what. So इसके bottom में we are going to have the 4-year resale value. All right. So firstly, we'll get a graph for this one, a bar for this one. Then at the top of it, we will get the bar for price in 1000. And यहाँ पे we have used the bottom parameter, and इसमें we have specified key which is the bar that is going to be at the bottom. Also, you just not need to mention the column name. You have to mention the whole value, which is data for 4-year resale value and the mean of it. All right. And once you are done with it, you can simply come out of this graph. If you want to specify other things such as title, labels, you can do that. Otherwise, simply do plt.show and let's see. So this is how your graph is looking like. Now at the bottom, you can see that the value for ticks, they are overlapping one another. All right, because the figure size is small and there are many values that are written on the x-axis. To resolve this, you can do two things. Either you can change your figure size. I'm mentioning here, increase figure size to resolve it. Otherwise, you can use a function that is called plt.xtext. This function takes a parameter that is rotation. And here I'm going to mention the rotation value as 90. So it is going to rotate the parameters by 90 degrees. All right, so it is much clearer now. Now let's see what is the insight that we obtain from this graph. Obviously, we can see that the four resale value is at the bottom and the price in thousand is at the top. And we can see that the resale value is pretty much bad for each and every manufacturer. But if you observe for Porsche, okay, it is better for Porsche, almost the same. So all such insights, all such comparisons, they can be done if you use a stacked graph for your data. Obviously, you can change it. You can mention the color if you want. You can mention the title. You can mention the labels. We have discussed all about it. Okay, every thing that specifies and that beautifies a graph, they can be done here as well. All right, please give me a thumbs up if it is clear to everyone now what a stack graph is. Only Mordhwaja has reacted. All right, everyone is getting, I believe. Now, if you want to convert this bar graph, okay, if you want to change its orientation, let's say it is not now vertical and I want to orient it in a horizontal manner. So one simple change, simply change the function name from bar to bar h and the parameter that is bottom. Now you have to change it to left. Okay, since the orientation is going to change. So this is now a horizontal bar graph. This function can be used simply to create a simple bar graph of horizontal orientation. It can be used in group bar graph as well, and here for stacked bar graph as well. All right, simply just change the parameter. Here, instead of where here, like for group bar chart, the parameter name will be changed, and instead of width, it is going to be height. Let me mention here. If you create a horizontal stacked bar chart, then simply just change the parameter name and the function. All right, if everything is good to go, give me a thumbs up. हाँ जी, प्लीज रिएक्ट कर दो. All right, चलो अब इसी data set के लिए if I have to create a pie chart and if I want to show the count for each of the manufacturers. So at the top, we use this value counts function, I guess here. And यहाँ पे we got to know that this is the number of models that are associated with each of the manufacturers in my data. If I want to visualize it using a pie chart, please write me a code that I can use to visualize this data. You guys know about the pie function. You guys know about how to separate this data from this data. Please write a piece of code that is going to visualize a pie chart for this data. If you are attempting it, give me a thumbs up. Otherwise, I'll tell how to do. Okay, कोई भी react नहीं कर रहा है, so I'll tell how to do this. Let's use this function and let's use the data that is generated by this function. इसमें we can call it manufacturers, or let's call it cars. Now cars is a series and we know that we have index attribute to get out all the labels of a series, and we have values attribute to get out all the values or all the data that is associated with that series. This can be my data for pie chart. This can be my labels for this data. So simply use the pie function, specify your data that is cars.values and specify your labels that is cars.index. And your pie chart will be created. All right. Here you can see again that some of the labels, they are overlapping one another. So again, we have a parameter that you can use for pie chart that is called rotate labels, I suppose. And you can set the angle to 90 degree and your labels, they will be rotated. Further, you can see if you want to increase the separation, increase the figure size. All right. Now, in this particular pie chart, you can see that the colors, they are generated by default. And if you want to specify your own, you have a list. You know about RGB values and you know about color codes. You can provide a list of colors. But is there any other way to beautify or to make this pie chart more pretty? So yes, there is. And we have something called color maps. Okay, so there is a function that is the CMap function inside PyPlot package, which is going to allow you to impart shades from the specified color maps. So let's see what these color maps are. So firstly, I'll be using a function that is called plt.getCmap. And I am providing a value that is spectral. As a result, I get a palette, and this palette, it contains various hues. These are ranging from red to darkish blue, and in between you can see that the shade is different. There is another value that you can provide. So let me just change the value. These are all the values that you guys can provide here. Okay, so Ascent, Blues, BR, BG, these are different kinds of color maps that are available for your use. So let's use one of them. This one contains hues of green color. Okay. Now I get it that we have a palette that I can use and I can get colors from this palette. But how to extract colors and how to impart these colors to our pie chart? So for this, we are going to use NumPy, and let's figure out how to use it. I have imported NumPy. And in NumPy, if you guys can recall, we had a function that was called linspace. All right. Now, what this linspace function was doing, it would take a range, और उस range के बीच में से it would get a specific number of values, and all the values, they would be equally spaced. So if I use the linspace function and if I get equally spaced values for different shades of color inside this color map, then maybe I can impart it to my pie chart, and then the colors that the chart is going to get, they will be represented as a gradient of green color. Okay, so it is going to look pretty while you look at it. अब इसको करना कैसे है? So for that, let's use the linspace function, np.linspace, and the range that I'm using is from 0 to 1. The other value that I should provide here should be the number of colors that I want to get, number of values that I want to generate. So let's pass the length of values that are present inside the manufacturer column. Okay, so all the unique manufacturers, and since I want to get the unique manufacturers only, I'm going to pass it through the set constructor. I hope you guys are understanding it. Car manufacturer is going to return all the values of manufacturer column. Set is going to generate the unique values out of it. And length is going to give me a number of all such unique values. And then linspace is going to generate from 0 till 1 that many number of values. Give a thumbs up अगर यहाँ तक everything is cleared. All right. If you still feel stuck and if you still are not able to understand, इन सबको अलग-अलग run करके you can see and you can spot the difference. All right. Now the values that will be generated, I want to loop through these values. So उसके लिए I have created this for loop. Now this for loop, I have to pass all the values that will be generated by this linspace through this map function. So I can create a variable for it, and the variable would be cmap. All right. And then what you guys can do, let's use list comprehension to create a list of colors. For CMap, you can pass the loop variable. Okay, now what is going to happen for all the numbers that will be generated for these unique manufacturers? उनके लिए you are going to get four value for each particular manufacturer from this CMap palette that we just saw. And let's store it inside a variable that is C list and have a look at it. Yes, Afan, instead of using set function, you can also use the unique function. Okay, multiple ways to do the similar thing. Okay, totally depend upon what you want to do. All right, so here you can see that for each and every value, we get four different values, and all these values, they represent to one particular shade inside this C map. Okay, simply now we want to impart these values and we want to set them as color to our pie chart. तो उसको करने के लिए you have to use the colors parameter and simply pass the list of colors that you have created. Now you can very clearly see that in the manner in which the colors are applied, it is quite gradient. You can see that the shades, they are increasing and then they are decreasing. So this is also yet another way to impart colors to your graph. You can use what was the function? This get CMap function. If you change the value and you set it to spectral, so this is how your graph will look like. All right, यहाँ तक I believe there is no doubt. Give me a thumbs up if everyone has understood it. Okay. Okay, I'll explain once again. कहाँ से शुरू किया था? Yeah, right here. So firstly, we use the get CMap function to get a particular color map. And we have, I guess, 50 some values that you can pass here and generate a different color map. Okay. So here we are using spectral one. Then what I want to do for each and every value of manufacturers, let's say I have 10 manufacturers. So हर 10 values के लिए I need to get a different shade of color. अब उसके लिए we have got the number of manufacturers and we have used the linspace function because this particular function, it will generate an array that will constitute numbers between this range and it is going to generate as many numbers. Okay, so for 10 manufacturers, let's say it is going to generate 10 equally spaced values. And that's why we are able to get such a beautiful shade and each and every value of color, it is just a fraction apart from one another. Okay. So this for loop, we have used list comprehension to create this C list. And as a result, for every value of I that will be generated using the linspace function, basically, if I run the function separately, okay, these are the values that are generated by the linspace function. So for every value of I have passed it through the CMap function, and for every value, I got four different values. Okay, these values, they represent a color inside this color map. When I store them in a list and I directly pass them in my pie chart as colors parameter, I am able to impart all of these colors to the pie chart. Is it clear now, Afan? All right. अब एक simple graph or we can understand, and that is the histogram. So what this graph is going to do, let me just check the data frame here. So what does histogram do? They are kind of similar to bar graph, but in these cases, the value, in case of histogram, the value that you are plotting or visualizing, it is of continuous nature. So let's visualize a histogram for sales in thousand. And you can simply provide a value for the histogram, and this is the value that we get. You can see that we only got one single graph for this particular column because the values they might be not too different from one another. So you can try it on any separate column where the value is present in different range. Also, this column, it might be of categorical nature. You can click that, and that's why you only get one single graph. Let's do it for price in thousand. Let me figure out what is the data type. So this is the histogram for price in thousand. And histograms, they hold quite significance in statistics and in probability. So when you are visualizing different kind of distributions and you are understanding the distribution, mostly we plot them using the hist function, and that is for histogram. All right, so a simple histogram can be plotted in this manner. If you want to change the ticks, you can use the ticks function. You can use the label function to label it. Everything is similar in terms of customizing. You can follow the same practices for histogram as well. All right, so before we wrap today's class, we are going to see one last function, that is subplots. Okay, so इसके लिए let's use a different data set. This data set, check the name. So there is a data set top 50 CSV, and this data set, it contains name of some tracks, some the name of artist, what is the genre, what are beats per minute, energy, danceability, and popularity. These values. So I'll be calling it stats, let's say. And what I want to do, I want to plot, or I want to visualize all of these values, beats per minute, energy, danceability, and popularity for each and every type of data that we have. All right. So all these columns, and I want to plot histogram for all the values for these columns. So how to do that? So basically in stats, these are the columns that are available to us. And from here onwards, I want to start plotting. So the column names, they start from 0, 1, 2, and at 3, we have the column that we desire. So if I slice, then these are the column names, just where I have to construct the histogram. Now I know about one thing, that if I use the hist function on any of these columns, let's say for beats per minute,